Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Essay. Today we are gonna see what if Issei was as the Red and White Dragon Emperor. Part 4. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. It's been a week since Issei and others came back to Kyoto from Okinawa after enjoying the summer there. Issei has been officially introduced as heir for the Haidu family. Thinking back, Issei couldn't help but think about how his life was going to turn out this way. First friend Irina moved and met someone like Office, not to mention living together. Then a visit to his grandparents for the first time. Oh boy. Who would guess that his grandparents were big shots in the supernatural world? Maybe his uncles and grandfathers, that is Drake and Albion, they are one of the older beings if not the oldest. Currently he was training in a pocket dimension without the care of damaging it, after all his grandpa already told him that it reset to its initial condition after every 30 seconds. To which he was glad, after all the damage he and girls made every day was enough to level 3 fractions combined. He didn't know what he'd do if he didn't have access to it. He was originally supposed to ask his Uncle Red's help, but it's not the problem anymore here, since he already got it. Issei wasn't the only one who was thinking about the past. Sitting under the tree at Haidu's garden, a blonde hair with a witch hat on her head was doing the same thing. She never thought she'd ever get to know what it is like to have a real family and not only get treated as a tool for the country. Not to mention how it is like to have parents that loved her. How does it feel when someone cares about you? But it all changed when she joined Haidu's. It wasn't like she disliked Yusaka, no. She would never do that after all, Yusaka gave her 1,000 times better, not to mention she was the one who introduced her to Issei. And as for the lifestyle that she gave to her, she really liked the Haidu family as they treat everyone with respect. She couldn't compare it to anything. When she saw how strong Issei and her other family was, she started to train seriously. She trained before but not that passionate that she was now. Her mood changed when she remembered her training time with Kunu. And how she always helped her out. It was good times but it still happens, but not only her but the others too. Flashback. I was able to conjure up the flames, but after a few seconds they disappeared. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong despite my attempts, said LeFay, who was learning Foxfire. I guess I know what you're doing wrong. But don't worry, I'll help you. I faced same problem before when I was trying to control my Foxfire. Kunu said, getting a small blush from her fellow ally. But can you help me train too? I have all kinds of crazy ideas for attack, however they all involve my tails. Unfortunately, I'm not really good when it comes to controlling them, as you might know. I can somewhat move them around, but I can't really grab anything with them, said Kunu. How am I going to help you if I don't have a tail? LeFay laughed. Hey. It's not funny. She whined upon hearing LeFay laugh. Flashback ends. She also remembered her conversation with Yusaka after joining Issei's peerage. Flashback. When Issei and the others visiting Kunu's house and LeFay was taking a walk alone but saw Yusaka sitting on a bench, but Yusaka noticed the presence and immediately knew who it was. Oh, LeFay, it's good to see you again. Is something wrong and you aren't with the others? Asked Yusaka with a concerned tone. Yusaka-sama, there was something I need to talk about, said LeFay in calm. What is it? Did Issei-kun say something? Has he treated you well? Questioned Yusaka. He and his. Our family is treating me well. It's about my past. When I was out with Issei and the others I saw people from the Pendragon clan and it looked like they were searching for me and I'm afraid to drag Issei and the others because of my problems. I don't want to see them get hurt because of me. I know they are powerful to protect themselves, but still it worries me, said LeFay with a sad tone. You know all your worries are pointless, they aren't going to just find you that easily. Do you remember that there is a strong barrier around my house and Issei's home? And even if they found you, we will protect you from them. We are your families now, and I'm sure Issei will do everything in his power to protect his girlfriend, said Yusaka with a teasing tone, and LeFay got a blush on her face that put Great Red to shame. Girlfriends, I'm one of Issei's girlfriends, LeFay kept mumbling and decided to calm herself. Come on Yusaka-sama, don't say things like that. Still having a blush resulting in Yusaka to laugh. So have you calmed down? Just believe in your king and your family and comrades, they will take your side and will always protect you, aren't you supposed to know that already? Said Yusaka looking at her. I guess so Yusaka-sama. LeFay said, but before she could continue a voice called them from a distance. Hey-chan. We've been looking all over for you, we got worried, you know. Said Issei. I'm sorry Ani-sama, please forgive me, said LeFay apologetically, but Issei patted her head and said. I'm not mad Fei-chan, I'm just worried and maybe you got kidnapped by the one who are chasing you and please tell me where you are going next time to avoid these things from happening again, and Issei hugged her. Okay Ani-sama, as she hugged him back. All Tiamat looking at them and giggling. Kunu and Kurumi was looking at them with jealousy. Balin and Kuroka were glaring at them with daggers. And off is just looking at them and cough. Cough cough. Issei noticed the cough and the looks, so he decided to break the hug and patted LeFei's head. Misaka laughed at the events. Flashback end. LeFei was training on how to use her dragon wings. Well, she can fly using her magic she just chose because she said it's pretty and it's a gift that her Oni-sama gave to her. Her wings have golden red color and decided tried to breath fire. It was successful but only created a small fire breath, but it was already progress. I'm sure if I get stronger I can protect Oni-sama and the others as the protect me too, LeFei thought, but her thought was interrupted as she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around to find Kuroka was standing with worried expressions. LeFei-chan, LeFei-chan. Is something wrong? Kuroka-chan asked LeFei as she tilted her head. Are you okay, LeFei-chan? I have been calling you for the last 5 minutes, replied Kuroka, who still had a worried tone. Sorry about that, Kuroka-chan, if I worried you I was just thinking. Said LeFei with a smile and decided to sit. Thinking about what exactly, LeFei-chan? Demanded Kuroka-chan. About joining Ice-kun Peerage and joining Haidu's, replied LeFei. A soft smile spread on Kuroka's face and she took a seat next to LeFei and said, do you regret it? LeFei stared at her with utter disbelief and replied instantly, what are you talking about, Kuroka-chan? Joining Issei Peerage was the best thing I ever did. Of course I didn't regret it. Joining Haidu's made me felt with joy as I never knew how was it have a family, a caring family, Issei family, I mean father, mother, grandpa and grandma always spoils me us. Kuroka giggled and said that was I wanted to hear, Fei-chan. Yes, Ice parents, I mean our parents. Never let us feel like we didn't belong and have any parents. Yes, joining Hiatus was a good choice. Not to mention you have a crush on Issei-kun. Kuroka never got a chance to finish her sentence as LeFei covered her mouth with her hand, who has a very red crimson face that can rival the color of great red. What are you talking about, you baka? Cried LeFei in embracement. Oh. Don't you know? A certain blonde-haired girl with a witch hat on her head has a massive crush on Ice-kun Naya, replied Kuroka playfully. Hearing that, LeFei's entire body went completely red. But somehow she composed herself and replied in a very teasing tone, says who? The same girl who was sleeping in his arms this morning, interlocking her legs with his, not to mention her head placed on his chest. Now this time Kuroka went completely red, but she replied nonetheless, I don't know what are you talking about, stuttered Kuroka. LeFei gasped and covered her mouth and replied in a mock surprised tone, did you just stutter? Kuroka realized what she did and replied with everything to cover it, I did no such things, Naya. LeFei giggled and said nah. You just stuttered even just now, you fufu. Stuttered. Who's stuttering? A voice came from behind which caught both of them off guard. Both of them turned around to find Valen, who was standing there with her arms crossed. Vali, what are you doing here, Naya? Asked Kuroka as she tried her best to change the subject. I just finished my training session. So I decided to check on you. What about you, replied Vali and sat beside LeFei. Making LeFei in the middle of Valen and Kuroka. We were just talking about Ice-kun Peerage, replied LeFei and a smile spread across her face as she saw Vali sitting beside her. I see, muttered Vali. How do you feel, Vali-chan? Naya asked questioned Kuroka. About, asked Vali. Joining the Haidu family. Of course. Replied LeFei. Now this time a warm smile spread on Valen's face. It is the best thing that ever happened to me, replied Valen without giving a second thought. And she continued, I didn't know what it was like to have a family, sure I did have a mother. But. Before she continued, LeFei embraced her in a warm hug. SHHH, it's okay. Vali-chan, and sorry for bringing such matters, whispered LeFei. Don't worry, LeFei-chan, it's okay. If it wasn't for Ice-kun, I never knew what it was like to have a family. How did it feel to be wanted? So. You have to, asked Kuroka in a very low tone which they heard clearly. What do you mean, Kuroka-chan? Asked Vali with a very confused expressions. LeFei giggled and replied she meant that you also like Ice-kun. Valen and Kuroka both went completely red at what LeFei just said. Vali looked at Kuroka and asked, you too? Who's not? Replied a very red-faced Kuroka and she turned her red face in another direction. She never felt this amount of embarrassment in her life before. But before anyone could continue the conversation, a voice called them. Hello, girls. Squealed the trip. And turned around to find a very amused Hitomi was standing there. Hitomi-sama, said LeFei. Hitomi-sama. Just how many times I told you all to call me just Bachan. Replied Hitomi while making a fake annoyed face. Hi Bachan, what are you doing here? Asked Kuroka. She started with Hitomi, but before she continued she caught Hitomi-sama expressions was changing and decided calling Bachan was a good choice. Well, I just came to tell you that it's dinner time. Did someone see where Ice-kun is? Replied Hitomi. Oh. Thank you Hiba-chan. And Ice-kun was in his pocket dimension, don't worry, I'll get him, said Valen. He's still training, I swear if he'll continue the way he is going, he'll surpass me and his Gigi-7 before entering his high school, complained Hitomi. Little did she know Issei already surpassed them ages ago. The trio just giggled. I'll see you both at dinner table, Ifei-chan, Kuroka-chan, said Valen and went to get ice. Both of them nodded and ran to the living hall, leaving Hitomi by herself. Who just smiled and remembered the time before they came to Kyoto. How the mansion was completely silent all the time, and that soon changed as Issei came. Truly her grandson is an enigma. Thinking about the past. A make voice caught her off guard, but she smiled as she instantly identified the voice and replied without turning around, yeah. Sometimes I thought if Issei wasn't come to Kyoto. Max sighed and replied, then he completed our house by filling people. First it was just his parents, office and him. True. Replied Hitomi in a low tone. But Max wasn't done and continued, besides when he came here and revealed his true identity and trained with the gods, after all that happens now I'm curious on how many more will he add cute girls in his growing harem. Max smiled pervertedly. But earned a smack by Hitomi. Bang. What was that for? Complained Max while rubbing his head with his left hand where Hitomi just smacked. Hitomi left eye twitched as she spoke, don't you dare to corrupt my grandson. But. He's already said by Max, but Hitomi interrupted and continued, we'll see when it comes to his age, right now he's just my cute little grandson. Max eyed, knowing full well that hell will freeze before he won an argument with Hitomi. The best option was to drop it. Underworld. Meanwhile in the underworld, specifically on the Citri's household. Sona Citri is used to being a very strict person, she still is, but only to others. She no longer has her strict personality towards her family, clan members and friends, much to her One-sama delight and her parents' disbelief. She was currently playing chess. But she didn't have an opponent. Her chessboard is kinda unique in that it has its own mind, and much to Sona happiness. She remembered how she got this chessboard and she was going to treasure this chessboard. After all, it's a gift from her Ice-kun. Flashback. Sona and Issei are sitting under a tree talking about their adventures today, while the others are helping to prepare for tonight's final dinner for their vacation. Hey So-chan, Issei called. What is it? Ice-kun asked Sona while looking at him. Well, tomorrow we'll leave, and Issei started, but Sona cut him off before he could continue and asked, and? You think I'll completely go out of contact? Then you're sadly mistaken, mister. Replied Sona in a very threatening tone. It's not like that, you see. I want to give you something special to remember this summer, you see it's because of this vacation we met. Issei opened his pocket dimension and got a box. I want to give you this as a memento for this summer and the day that we first met. Said Issei while giving her a box, which Sona received from him and opened it and found a very beautiful chess set. Issei continued and said, I know you like chess, but you won't always have someone to play with it, so I made it specially for you. You see So-chan, this chess set is very special that it has its own mind of itself, so you don't need any players to play with it. I hope you like it, hahaha, said Issei while laughing nervously at the last part, thinking that she might not like his present. Sona stared at the set, then enveloped Issei in a very tight embrace and gave him a passionate kiss on the lips, then broke the kiss and whispered thank you in his ear. Issei didn't hear her whisper as he was busy blushing heavily when Sona enveloped him in a tight embrace, kissed him passionately. Sona is having the same reaction as having a huge blush. Flashback end. Her cheek went completely red as she remembered that event. But that was nothing compared to the time when her One-sama caught her sleeping together with her Ice-kun. Flashback. Issei was about to switch off the lights of his room, the others were already asleep. But a knock on his door made him stop and was curious who it was. Come in, said Issei, the door opened revealing a very rare cute Sona with her glasses, in her pajamas, holding a cute bunny. Seeing her in this, Issei couldn't help but blushed. She was blushing too. So-chan? Can I sleep here? Asked Sona shyly. Issei smiled warmly and said, please join us, Oh-chan. Sona just nodded and didn't say any more words and just climbed to the bed and snuggled close to Issei. She didn't know when sleep had already taken over her. When the sun was already up and that time Serafo was also awake, she did the first thing she always does in the morning, checking in on her little sister. When Serafo entered her baby sister's room and didn't find her in her room. She panicked and went to call the entire household, but her baby sister's bunny was missing, which caught the attention of her eyes. Then remembers the way her baby sister was acting when Ice-chan was going to his room. A devilish smile appeared across her face. Then she went back to her room to grab her camera. Oh boy. Poor Sona, she didn't even know what hit her. Standing in front of the door of Issei's room, Serafo is holding a camera. Sunlight hit the room of Issei, more importantly Sona. As she started to awake from the disturbing sunlight, Baka sunlight, muttered Sona as she was completely awake now. First thing she saw after being forcefully woken by the sunlight was Issei's peaceful sleeping face. Issei. Now she remembered her position and found herself in Issei's tight embrace. Issei's arms possessively holding her. She was no good either as her legs were interlocked with Issei's. She was so lost in Issei's face, she didn't even notice who just entered the room. She leaned forward and gave a gentle kiss on his cheek, but a bright flash of light completely caught her off guard. Turning around, she found her worst nightmare. She found her One-Sama holding a camera. And found out that her One-Sama is now taking pictures with her Ice-kun. Flashback end. She had never felt that amount of embracement in her entire life. But a knock that she heard interrupted her thoughts. Knock knock. Come in, replied Sona. And a maid entered her room. Sona-sama, you instructed me to inform you when we start the preparation for dinner, said the maid. Indeed, Seo-san, is it time? Sona asked the maid. Yes, Sona-sama, we just started the preparation, replied the maid whose name was identified as Seo. Well, I wanted to cook something, replied Sona, who got a stunned look from the maid. Sona-sama? Asked the maid who still had shocked expressions on her face. And why wouldn't she? Sona never cooked before, let alone entered the kitchen. Which is a new experience in the Citri household. Don't worry, I know how to cook, someone taught me so. Said Sona. Yes, Sona-sama, if you need any assistance, please just ask me or the other servant, Sona-sama, replied Seo. Well, don't tell anyone I'm cooking, I want to surprise them, said Sona. Yes, Sona-sama, replied Seo. Very well, led the way, Sona ordered. Meanwhile, with Lord and Lady Citri. Did you notice the changes in Sona-chan, dear? Asked Lady Citri. Yes, honey, now that you mentioned it, after their summer vacation at Okinawa, she was acting differently, well, not for others, but for the family members, replied Lord Citri as he stopped his paperwork when he thought about her younger daughter's behavior. But the changes were good, that's for sure, replied Lady Citri. May I ask how? Lord Citri asked. Don't you see? She lessened her strict personality towards family clan members, replied Lady Citri. Now that but before Lord Citri continued, he was interrupted by a loud knock at the door that interrupted the conversation of Lord and Lady Citri. Come in, Lord Citri ordered. The maid entering the study room, Seo bowed and said, Lord and Lady Citri, dinner is ready. Thank you, Seo, tell Sona and Serafal we'll be there in 5 minutes. Yes, Lord Citri, replied the maid as she bowed again and left the room. After 5 minutes, Lord and Lady Citri went to the dining table, but Lord and Lady Citri noticed something was different. Today's cooking smells something different, said Lord Citri as he and Lady Citri seated. Serafal had a very amused expression as she knew the reason why it smells different. But she decided to play along and let her little sister do what she wanted to do. When Lord Citri tasted his meal, you could see the star in his eyes. He immediately looked at the maid that was called Seo and asked Seo, what did you add to tonight's dinner? It's taste heavenly. Tonight's dinner wasn't prepared by me, Lord Citri, Seo simply replied. Serafal giggled as she remembered her little sister's cooking lesson with Issei's mother. Flashback. It was evening time when Sona was helping Miyuki to prepare dinner. Sona-chan, cook the meat a little bit more and you'll get the right taste, advised, suggested Hitomi while looking at the meat. Yes, Miyuki-sama, replied Sona. Oh, Sona-chan, how many times have I told you not to call me Sama? Asked Miyuki with a fake angry tone. Miyuki-san, timidly said by Sona. Yes, that will do for now, said Miyuki with a wink. Which got a result with a blushed Sona. I think the meat is ready, Miyuki-san, replied Sona. Let me see, Sona-chan, the smell is necessitated. Miyuki then started to check her cooking and said, yes, it's perfect, Sona-chan, you will become a very good wife in future, Sona-chan. Miyuki smiled. Sona blushed after being praised by Issei's mother and said, thank you, Miyuki-san, I learned from the best. Sona smiled. The both of them just giggled. Flashback end. Lady Citri raised an eyebrow at her elder daughter's strange behavior and asked Seo then who cooked tonight dinner. Before Seo could say anything, her younger daughter was the one who replied, that will be me. The look of utter disbelief spread on her face, and when Lord Citri heard it, he choked his food. And spoke, come again. Serafal laughed openly and replied, instead of her little sister, it was our Sotan who cooked for tonight's dinner. Then she gave them a smile. For the whole minute it was absolutely silent, even dimensional gap silence paled in comparison to the silence they were casting now. May I ask how? Asked Lady Citri, who still had a disbelief look on her face. Sona was about to answer, but Serafal had other plans and spoke, our future mother-in-law taught Sotan how to cook. And again silence filled the room. And the result was something that caught everyone off guard. Lady Citri was looking at her elder daughter who stayed far away from the world of marriage. Now she has acknowledged someone as her future mother-in-law. Well, all she has to do is start the preparation for her wedding, but first she has to talk to the boy men who caught her elder daughter's eyes. Wait, did she say ours? Screamed Lady Citri in her mind. Lord Sitri was no different this time. He choked the water that he was drinking. Her daughter had to drop to nuclear bomb level. But before he could ask anything, her younger daughter exclaimed. "Ours?" cried Sona in embracement. "I see you aren't denying that she is your future mother-in-law," replied Seraful playfully. Well, those statements not only caught Sona completely off guard, but also Lord and Lady Sitri were both looking at her younger daughter like she grew another head. "Wani-sama?" Sona cried embarrassedly. "Oh, I think Ice-kun doesn't mind if we both get married to him," Seraful playfully replied and got a result of getting a completely red Sona. "Stay Ice-kun out of this, Wani-sama," Sona cried out. "Fine, but I'll join you both at bedtime. Last time I missed, and you mean he didn't invite me," Seraful playfully replied while making a pout at the end. Lord and Lady Sitri looked at their daughters as if they weren't the Sona and Seraful once they knew. Both of them looked towards and blinked when they caught on the sleeping part. "Excuse me," stated Lord Sitri, he had enough now, his both daughters have a crush on the same guy. And he didn't even know a thing about him. "Yes, daddy," replied Seraful cutely. "Who is this ice guy you were both talking about?" asked Lord Sitri curiously, and Lady Sitri nodded. "Not to mention our younger daughter was sleeping with him," added Lady Sitri. "Oh. Is it because he is our boyfriend?" Seraful replied cheerfully with a smile and gave both of them a peace sign. "And Sona was sleeping with him?" asked Lord Sitri and was curious about the answer. And Lady Sitri just looked at her younger daughter. "It wasn't like that, we just fell asleep together," defended Sona. Seraful still didn't have enough of it and decided to draw her trump card. And said the picture tells a completely different story, sleeping in each other's arms, interlocking their legs, not to mention you were kissing him, Seraful giggled cheerfully. Lord Sitri looked at her daughter in disbelief. The bomb that just dropped off by both of his daughters was beyond the level of nuclear class. He couldn't take any more of it and he'll faint. Lady Sitri looked at her daughter, then at her husband and said, "Dear, let's start the preparation for Sona's wedding." "Yes, honey." "Seraful, could you give us the details about my future son-in-law and his family?" asked Lord Sitri. Lady Sitri also nodded as she also wanted to know the man-boy who stole both of her daughters' hearts. Sona was now staring at them with curious expressions. "His full name is Issei Haidu and we met him during our vacation on Okinawa, which is owned by the Haidu family clan." Again, just absolute silence. The maid called Sao, who was standing near the dining table, fainted. Poor girl. Lord and Lady Sitri have their mouths wide open. Lady Sitri somehow managed to compose herself and asked, "Did you just say Haidu? As in the Haidus?" Seraful nodded cheerfully, while Sona started to think how the hell she got in this mess. All she did was to cook dinner to surprise her parents. Who in their right mind can guess that her Wani-sama pulled something like that? "Well, I can't complain since it's Ice-kun. Wait, what? What in the hell I was thinking," Sona thought to herself, but suddenly remembered the situation that she got herself into when she caught sleeping together with Issei by her own Wani-sama, no less. Baka Ice-kun. Look what you did to me, I can't stop thinking about you." Seraful wanted to continue where Sona left off and said he is the grandson of Max and Hitomi Haidu and son of Tetsuya and Miyuki Haidu, and he is the heir to the house of Haidu. Said with a smile. "As expected from my daughters Haidu, the Haidus," muttered Lord Sitri. "I think we should contact the Haidus for 2 marriage agreements," said Lady Sitri to Lord Sitri. "2?" questioned Sona. "Yeah, yours and your Wani-sama," replied Lord Sitri. Seraful cheered and started celebrating, completely forgetting she was having her dinner. Sona was blushing madly. Lady Sitri had a very amused expression. "Well then, I'll contact Haidus for a marriage agreement right away," stated Lord Sitri as he left the room instantly to contact the house of Haidu. "Oh. And Kasama, we are invited to Ice-kun's birthday," stated Sona. "Ah. So have you decided on a gift that you will give to your future husband on his birthday?" Teased by Lady Sitri. I didn't decide yet," replied a very blushing Sona. "I guess I'll give myself," Seraful stated boldly. "Wani-sama. So? Should I start shopping for our grandchild?" Lady Sitri asked while giggling. "Kasama." Cried by Sona, and Seraful just giggled and spoke, "You should ask Sotan about that, Kasama, after all she found red-handed." Sona didn't know whose teasing was bad if her Wani-sama was bad. Her mother is the worst. In the end she decided to be quiet and just finish her dinner. Meanwhile with Lord Sitri. Max Haidu has just finished his dinner and is currently doing his paperwork in his study room. Then suddenly a magical circle activated near his ear. He first looked at the magical circle and when he found the Sitri symbol in it, he responded immediately. "Hello," responded Max. "Greetings, Max," and replied Lord Sitri. "Oh. Is that you, Jin-san? How have you been?" asked Max. I am fine Max and I have some important matters to ask. It's about the two marriage agreements, replied Jin. Max sighed heavily, knowing full well this was going to happen sooner or later, but he never thought it's going to happen this soon. Just give me 10 minutes Jin-san, let me ask Ice-kun first, asked Max. Sure Max-san, replied Jin. But when he was about to cut off, Max stopped and said, but he's going to marry more girls in the future. Excuse me? What do you mean Max-san? Jin asked curiously. Who knew? The daughter of Yusaka, I think you know who she is. Well, she is going to marry him in future. And some other girls too, replied Max. Jin paused for a second and then spoke, but I thought he is 6 years old, soon to be 7. Yes he is, but he is kind of a chick magnet, and please don't ask, normal equations don't suit him, said Max, while muttering the last part to himself. Jin just chuckled and asked, I presume my daughters already knew about it. Yes, simply replied Max. Jin had tears in his eyes and said, the kid is going to have the lifestyle every man wished for. Now Max had tears in his eyes and replied, you got that right Jin-san, it's called legal paradise. So I'll prepare marriage agreement papers right away, replied Jin. Engagement will just do for now. As for marriage, let's just say when Issei will be 20 years old. Well? Suggested Max. Jin thought for a moment and said, it's perfect Max-san, and the conversation broke. Max called a servant and instructed him to get Issei. After 2 minutes the servant and Issei are now in front of Max. Max-sama, I've brought Issei-sama, said by a servant. Thank you James, said Max, and the servant named James bowed and left the two alone. You called Grandpa? Yes, you see Issei, let me get this straight Issei, how do you feel about all the girls around you? Asked Max with a serious face. Issei has a tendency to blush, but seeing the serious face of his grandfather he replied, I like them Grandpa, hell, I even love some of them, but Max smiled at his grandson and said, but what? Is something wrong? I can't be with all of them, right, Grandpa? Asked Issei with a sad smile. What if I told you you can, Issei? Replied a very amused Max. Issei stared at his grandpa for a while and asked, is it possible? How? Max just chuckled and replied, you can marry all of them. But Issei started, but Max stopped him and asked how. Tell me one thing Issei, when you go to bed what do you see every night? Huh? What do you mean? Asked a very confused Issei. Do you miss the girls when they are not sleeping with you? Asked Max. Issei stared at him for a full moment, then asked, and what are you getting at? They all have an agreement. An agreement? Yes. An agreement that they will share you. Wait, what? But who told you? Office. Issei sighed and asked, what was the real reason why you called? Max chuckled and said, the Citri sent a marriage proposals. Wait, what? Marriage? Don't worry, it's just an engagement, and as for marriage it will have to wait until you turn 20 years old. Issei sighed. He is too young to deal with this kind of thing. Issei just looked at the starry sky. I can't be with all of them, right, Grandpa? Asked Issei with a sad smile. What if I told you you can, Issei? Replied a very amused Max. Issei stared at his grandpa for a while and asked, is it possible? How? Max just chuckled and replied, you can marry all of them. But Issei started, but Max stopped him and asked how. Tell me one thing Issei, when you go to bed what do you see every night? Huh? What do you mean? Asked a very confused Issei. Do you miss the girls when they are not sleeping with you? Asked Max. Issei stared at him for a full moment, then asked, and what are you getting at? They all have an agreement. An agreement? Yes. An agreement that they will share you. Wait, what? But who told you? Office. Issei sighed and asked, what was the real reason why you called? Max chuckled and said, the Citri sent a marriage proposals. Wait, what? Marriage? Don't worry, it's just an engagement, and as for marriage it will have to wait until you turn 20 years old. Issei sighed. He is too young to deal with this kind of thing. Issei just looked at the starry sky. Issei was staring at his grandfather for almost 5 minutes. But no one said a single word after the last statement. Finally, the silence was broken as Issei asked once again, and how about Sona? Already started to care about your fiancé? Teased Max, but when he saw Issei's serious face he dropped his teasing manner and said she already knows. Issei's eyes widened in disbelief. He asked again to confirm whatever he just heard she knew about. Yes, she already knew about others, so you don't have to worry, replied Max. I guess so, Issei sighed. You don't need to worry about the others, worry about your situation first. Suggested Max. May I ask why? Asked Issei with confused expressions. Max chuckled and said, girls' jealousy, you'll understand soon, it's just a beginning. Issei was completely sure he didn't like the way his grandfather just spoke. If what he understood from his last statement was true, then whatever remaining peace was left in his life will be over. Issei looked up at the starry sky and his grandpa said, oh. I almost forgot, the House of Citri also sent a proposal for Serafo too. Issei just looked at his grandfather. Underworld. Sona somehow finished her dinner. But constant teasing coming from her One-sama and Ka-sama made her run away from the living hall to her bedroom. But she had to wait for her Otu-sama. As he was currently talking with the Haidus for her and her One-sama marriage. Unfortunately, she had to wait for her Otu-sama until he finished talking with Haidus. She didn't know what to feel. She was nervous as hell, but somehow she was excited too. She clearly had no a single clue how Haidus were going to reacted and what was Issei thinking about her now. Did he accept? Or declined? Either way she was nervous. Sona never felt this level of nervousness in her entire life. Until she met Issei Haidu. And after meeting Issei, she felt different types of emotions at its peak. And still thinking on how Issei Hayato is going to act. Serafal was no different. After rejecting countless marriage proposals, she didn't know that she'd ever say yes to a marriage, not to mention to be sent by her very own house after her own suggestion. It's the first time in her entire life she was this nervous, not even the Devil's Civil War made her nervous on this level. Yes, she was nervous all the time at war because countless lives were on the line. But the level of nervousness she was feeling right now was insane. Did Ice-chan accept our proposals? Or did he reject it? Thought Serafal, damn it. I didn't even get the chance of bonding with Ice-chan, screamed Serafal in her mind. Well, at least we did something special in the bath together. Serafal blushed at her own statement. Flashback. In the shower room, Issei had started the shower and just sat letting the hot water rinse his body and he hoped his stress away. Footsteps approached the young boy and by the time he had heard them it was too late. He felt a pair of what could only be described as large marshmallows on his back and then a voice saying, "Do you need help washing your stress away?" Serafal. The boy fell and hit his head on the floor in shock. He then looked up to see Serafal's naked form. Had it not been for the mist in the room he would have been able to see every detail. What are you doing in here?" He screamed as he tried to cover himself. When he tried to stand up he slipped toward Serafal, causing him to pin her down to the floor. I'm sorry Sera-chan. When Issei was about to stand up he was stopped by the arms that were wrapping around his waist. Issei could not hold himself but to have a boner and when Serafal felt his member poking around her abdomen she said, "Oh. Little Issei is now big," Issei said Serafal while pushing and from the statement of Serafal Issei blushed putting great red to shame. I'm sorry Sera-chan, I can't hold it back, you are just too cute for me to hold back." It's okay Ice-kun, but are you okay? That looks painful. Yeah. I will go back to normal for a while. I can make it feel better Ice-kun, can you lay down on the floor? Moo. Ice-kun, please don't make me repeat myself. Issei didn't want to make Serafal angry, so he just obeyed. What now? Serafal didn't reply, but just put Issei's member on Serafal's cleavage and started to rub using her chest up and down. Sorry if it doesn't feel good, it's my first time doing it with someone. No. Serafal stopped and looked at him. I mean you should have confidence in yourself, it really feels good and more than this will make me explode. Thank you Ice-kun, Serafal said as she resumed pleasuring Issei. Hey Sera-chan, can you sit on my face too? I want to make you feel good too. It's unfair that I'm the only one feeling good, Issei said with a massive blush on his face, but Serafal was no different. She just nodded and decided to sit on Issei's face. Issei started to lick Serafal's slit and resulting for her to moan a bit loudly. Issei decided to put a barrier so no one can find out what happened. Issei-kun, that feels good, please lick me more, Serafal demanded. Which Issei happily complied. Yes. Ice-kun. Sera-chan, this is bad, almost. It's fine Ice-kun, I'm also near, let's come together. As Serafal said that she picked up her pace, Issei was no different, he put his tongue inside of her beep. I'm coming Ice-kun. I'm coming to Sera-chan, and Issei pinched her clit causing her to came. And he came to Serafal's mouth while she drank his semen. Pant, it was delicious Ice-kun, pant, you were amazing Ice-kun. It really felt pant good Sera-chan. We should start cleaning, wanna shower together Ice-kun. I would love that, Sera-chan, and the two kissed passionately. After the both of them finished showering, they came out from the bathroom but the girls greeted them and glared at Serafal. Flashback end. Good times, thought Serafal with a blushing face which didn't go unnoticed by her mother. Needless to say, when Issei came out from his shower, he had a very red face that could put great red to shame. Thus say yes to the proposal Ice-chan, and we can do the rest, as Serafal thought. Steam came out from her ears. Lady Citri had a slight idea what her elder daughter was thinking. She never thought she'd live the day just to see her daughter acting like a schoolgirl. Was she blushing? Why was One-sama red all of a sudden? It was like Sona thought and stared at her One-sama, but when she saw steam come out from her ears, it just confirmed her suspicion. But what was she thinking that made her blush like a schoolgirl? Was it Ice-kun? Little did she know, her One-sama already got a chance to showering and did something special together. The silence was broken when their mother decided to say something. So tell me about my future son-in-law. Asked teased by Lady Sitri. This was one hell of a chance to tease her daughters and she won't gonna miss it, much to Sona's embarrassment. As you know his name is Issei Haidu. Surprisingly Sona started. Lady Sitri thought her elder daughter was going to start but her younger daughter beat her into it. Son of Tatsuya and Miyuki Haidu, grandson of Max and Hitomi Haidu, continued Serafal. Sona nodded. And before we can tell you anything we would like to keep it secret until he is ready to reveal himself to the supernatural world, added Sona while looking at her One-sama, who nodded in agreement, then their Ka-sama. Lady Sitri raised an eyebrow to her daughter's request but decided to accept it nonetheless. If her future son-in-law didn't want to reveal himself in the supernatural world, she'll accept it, for now at least. Fine, replied Lady Sitri. He is the current and strongest Red and White Dragon Emperor, added Serafal after her mother accepted her little sister's request. What? The Red and White Dragon Emperor? How's that possible? To have two types of Longinus class sacred gear, it's classified as a mid-class, but a Longinus is still a Longinus, a sacred gear capable of killing gods, asked in surprise by Lady Sitri. She didn't know if she was going to feel excited or nervous for her daughter's future. But chuckled at last, surprising her daughters and spoke. Looks like Haidu's carried their legacy. Anyway, he is cute and a gentleman, continued Sona. But when she registered her own words, she blushed heavily. She didn't even realize what she said until it was already too late. Baka Issei. Making me say something embracing Baka. Lady Sitri giggled. But the real bomb was yet to drop by Serafal as she thought aloud, not to mention the expressions he made when we showered together. Lady Sitri and Sona both stated at Serafal as they had seen ghost or biblical god and devil cases. What? Both Lady Sitri and Sona exclaimed in unison. Serafal blinked and chuckled when she realized her mistake and said, did I say aloud? While rubbing her head. But Lady Sitri wanted to know more about her future son-in-law, so she ignored it and asked another questions. All she got still was his name, his parents' and grandparents' names. Is he strong? Or potential to become strong? Yes, his current level now surpasses any ultimate class, said Sona. Not to mention, he is suppressing his own aura, making it look less strong, added Serafal. Serafal, you don't mean? Asked Lady Sitri to reconfirm what she just heard. As you mentioned now One-sama, he is as strong as your true form, if not maybe even beyond, added Sona. She well knew Ice-kun was suppressing his own aura that was later confirmed by Office herself. So what else about my future son-in-law? Lady Sitri asked curiously. He was currently living with his parents and grandparents and other girls, said Serafal while making a nervous face, as she didn't know how her mother was going to react to news of her future son-in-law already making a harem for himself. And it doesn't matter even if he didn't know himself about it. Lady Sitri blinked twice before she asked in a very sweet threatening tone, some other girls, Zera-chan. Sona didn't like where this conversation was going to end up, especially like this, so she did her best to defend her Ice-kun and said he hasn't peerage, causally replied Sona, as like she was telling today's news. Sorry, Sona-chan, I didn't hear you clearly. I think I just heard that my future son-in-law is having a peerage. Asked Lady Sitri. Not having, he already have one, Sona said. Because she said so, yes, and before you overreact about this matter let us explain, said Serafal. Lady Sitri remained silent as giving her daughters a chance to explain. As I mentioned that he has peerage, but he has a special type of peerage. A peerage of dragons more specifically. Sona explained. Yes, Kas, and you heard it clearly, not angels, not devils but dragons. Added Serafal. And let me get this straight, the girls in his peerage have some feelings towards my future son-in-law. Asked Lady Sitri to try to confirm her suspicion. Sona nodded and said yes, but all of them have genuine feelings towards him. I know, we met them, and I became close friends with all of them. Replied Sona, remembering her friendship with other girls. Lady Sitri looked at her and thought if the smile on her face was genuine, then I have nothing to fear about them. Yes, Kas, and they all have pure hearts, added Serafal. And how is Issei treating them? Lady Sitri asked. She couldn't help but wanted to know how her future son-in-law was treating his peerage. If there was an easiest way to judge a person's personality, you could judge through how the said person treats his/her peerage. Hearing their mother's questions, both girls smiled as she reminded themselves how gentle Issei treats his peerage members, or should they say family members. He didn't treat them as if they were his peerage members, but instead he treated them as if they were his family members, replied Serafal. Lady Sitri tensed when she heard Serafal, but a genuine smile appeared on her lips as Serafal ended her statement. I'll say it's better than the Gremory, added Sona. Serafal nodded in agreement. Are you coming in or just stay there and continue listening to our conversation? Spoke Lady Sitri. Serafal and Sona blinked in confusion, but their confusion answered when Lord Sitri entered the room. Adiadao-sama, exclaimed Serafal and Sona. So that's why Maxan told me to just ask my daughters, huh? Muttered Lord Sitri to himself, but Lady Sitri heard him and spoke care to elaborate. Dear, asked Lady Sitri, but her tone promised pain if he failed to compile. Well, honey, you see our future son-in-law has a tendency to attract girls stated by Lord Sitri, but Serafol didn't take it well and said it's not like that. Ice-chan never play with anyone. Emotion. Sona nodded and said Ice-kun is very kind, gentle, powerful, but not arrogant. He even treated his household servants with respect which many men lacked. Lady Sitri smiled as that was something she wanted to hear from her daughter's mouth. And looked at her husband and said, I get it why Maxan mentioned his grandson has a tendency to attract girls, while looking at both of her daughters, who were now a complete blushing mess. But a question still remains unanswered, Lord Sitri stated. What was it, Daddy? Asked Serafol cheerfully. How in the nine hells Issei obtained his evil pieces? Asked Lord Sitri. I'm curious about that too. That was something even I wanted to know, added Lady Sitri. He got it as a special gift from a certain someone and he called his evil pieces the dragon pieces, replied Sona. The dragon pieces, huh? Said Lord Sitri. It's a fitting name for it, don't you agree, dear Lady Sitri? The evil pieces who can turn its bearer into a dragon, it is indeed a very fitting name for our future son-in-law to come up with, replied Lord Sitri. Yes, it will be quite troublesome if we reveal him now, said Serafol with a serious face. Sona couldn't help but agree with her. One-sama. Lady Sitri nodded and said agree. Now that is done, back to marriage agreements, Lord Sitri said, catching everyone's attention in the room, and continued. Maxan mentioned that our future son-in-law was quite friendly with Kunu, the daughter of Yasaka. Serafol and Sona nodded while Lady Sitri was looking at her husband in disbelief, but Lord Sitri ignored her and continued, so don't get surprised if Kunu gets engaged to our future son-in-law in future. Lady Sitri had her jaw on the ground and said, our future son-in-law is quite popular with the ladies, huh? Well, Sona and Serafol just giggled. No biggie, Otu-san, we already have a mutual sharing agreement, stated Sona. Serafol nodded. Now Lord Sitri turns to have his jaw on ground, and now he has. Lord Sitri and Lady Sitri now had to accept it clearly that their future son-in-law will be going to have a harem whose girls will already have a mutual agreement. You lucky future son-in-law, muttered Lord Sitri. Unfortunately for Lord Sitri, her wife heard him crystal clear and spoke. What was that, dear? Asked Lady Sitri in a very sweet tone that promised a lot of pain, broken bones and many more. He just shudders at the thought of what his wife will do with him. Nothing, honey, I just said our future son-in-law is so lucky that he is going to marry both of our daughters. Oh really, dear, I thought there was something else, replied Lady Sitri with a sweet tone, but that promised a lot of pain. I wouldn't dare to lie, honey, replied Lord Sitri, who was paling every second at the thought of what his wife would do to him. You better, said Lady Sitri in a very threatening tone. So you both don't have any issues with my future son-in-law marriage, asked Lady Sitri as she wanted to reconfirm everything. Don't worry, Kasama, she won't let anyone add in his harem. His intention wasn't good, replied Sona. She. Asked Lord Sitri. Lady Sitri blinked and looked at her daughter, somehow even she had a guess who may be this she, but her identity is still mysterious to her. Who is this mysterious person, if I may ask? Someone happen to be the alpha of his harem? Asked Lady Sitri. Sona nodded. Lord Sitri waited potentially to know the identity of she. Her name is Office, stated Serafol. Thump. Lord Sitri couldn't take the truth of the identity of the alpha of his future son-in-law's harem, and he couldn't help but faint. After 5 minutes, Lord Sitri is showing signs about to wake up. He is waking up, mommy, said the cheerful voice of Serafol. We can clearly see One-sama, replied a very annoyed Sona. Lady didn't say anything, as she was waiting for her husband to regain his consciousness. Both of her daughters might have given them enough surprise for her entire devil lifespan. What happened? Asked Lord Sitri as he regained consciousness. Madao-san, you fainted, replied Sona, somewhat relieved. Huh? Said with a confused Lord Sitri and blinked as he also regained the memories before fainting. Tell me you were kidding, asked Lord Sitri with a very horrified expression. Daddy, Office-chan wasn't that bad once you get to know her, in fact she was very caring, replied Serafol. Lord and Lady Sitri didn't know what to do in this kind of situation. In the end, she decided to agree with her older daughter, as there was a reason she was a devil king after all. Anyway, there was a reason why I decided to cook dinner, stated Sona with a serious face, catching everyone's attention towards her. It's about I want to ask a favor, more specifically for a friend of mine who wanted a favor, continued Sona. Serafol and her parents had confused expressions on their faces as they didn't know which friend of hers she was talking about. Well, it's about Isoba-san. She was attacked by some Rouge Fallen Angels few months ago, and he asked if we could check her in Serafol Memorial Hospital, asked Sona. Then he should admit her there, and if he is your friend he didn't even have to pay unless he is, stated Lord Sitri. Yes, he isn't a devil, said Sona. But you know the hospital isn't for non-devil unless the said person has some sort of alliance with us, replied Lady Citri. Yeah, that's why I asked for a favor, but I think I don't need it anymore as we are already going to have an alliance with them, casually replied Sona. Excuse me? Asked Lord Citri, who did not process what his daughter said. Sona continued. But I think there's no need to ask for a favor. I don't need to ask for a favor since that friend of mine happens to be Ice-kun, said Sona, and a blush spread on her cheek as she mentioned the name of Issei. She remembered very well what her Ice-kun asked her. Flashback. Sona was video chatting with Issei before going for lunch. Hey, So-chan, asked Issei, making Sona nervous. Can you tell me more about the Citri? You didn't tell me, Issei nervously asked. Citri clan. The Citri clan is one of the remaining 33 devil clans of the 72 pillars and one of the highest ranking, ranked as a great prince of hell and famous devil families. Replied Sona, and she continued, well, it paled in comparison to a powerhouse such as yours. But the Citri clan are also known to be one of the few territories which have advanced medical facilities as well, having one of the most famous hospitals in the underworld. Well, that was something that caught Issei's ears and he spoke. Hospital. Advanced medical facilities, you say? Yes, a hospital created by one Isama from the natural reserves from our clan. It is famously known throughout the underworld to not only have the best of our family's medical facilities, but also for being named after her, which increased its popularity as she is the most famous female devil in the underworld. Issei stared at her like he had seen a ghost. Making Sona worried. Ice-kun? Ice-kun? Called Sona. Huh? Yay. You're spacing out, Ice-kun, are you alright? Asked Sona with a worried face. Actually, So-chan. Can I ask you a favor? Asked Issei. Sona blinked and smiled, of course. Ice-kun, anything, replied Sona, somewhat blushing, which completely went unnoticed by Issei. Well. You see. It's about my Oba-san, and Issei explained to her what happened to her Oba-san. Flashback end. Lord Citri just chuckled and spoke, well, yeah, even he didn't need to ask a favor. His Oba-san was attacked. Wait a minute. Wasn't Kurumi related to Issei, not to mention his cousin? Asked Seraphil. Yes, his Oba-chan was Kurumi's mom, replied Sona. Mind if I ask who this Kurumi girl is? Asked a curious Lady Citri. Well, she is Ice's cousin and also his queen, replied Seraphil. Also the current welder of the Long Inus Incinerate anthem, added Sona, making her parents' eyes widened. Oh my. Looks like our future son-in-law is already making a strong peerage, dear, said Lady Sight with a very high spirit. I guess you are right, honey, Lord Citri replied with a smile. He called them his family members, you know, Sona reminds them. Yes, we will remember that, assured Lord Citri with a nervous smile. So he already had a queen, huh? Asked Lady Citri. Yes, queen and 2 bishops and 1 pawn, replied Seraphil. 2 bishops and a pawn? Asked a very excited Lord Citri. Somehow he got very interested in his future son-in-law peerage. Yeah. One of the 2 bishops is a Nekashu, another one is a human girl, started Seraphil. And the last pawn is a half-devil, continued Sona, making her parents' eyes the size of soccer. A half-devil? Do you know where her origins are? Asked by Lord Citri, but Seraphil didn't know what house she came from because of the effect of being part of Issei's peerage, which covers the bearer's original race. You didn't mention each peerage member has potential to surpass Super Devil class, stated Sona. Making her parents speechless. Anyway, So-tan, you mean you didn't tell me about your secret video chatting with Ice-kun, teased Seraphil, getting a red face. Sona, while Lady Citri giggled. Human world. Issei was staring at his grandfather in utter disbelief. Let me get straight, not only did Citri send marriage proposals for Sona, but they also sent for Seraphil. Asked Issei the 3rd time. Yes, for the 3rd time, Issei replied Max. But Issei said, but his grandfather continued. No, but young man, when you showered already with her, accept her to get married with you, teased Max. Causing Issei to blush. But wasn't she the Devil King? Asked Issei. Oh. Issei, she clearly has an interest in you, just get engaged for now, remember you don't have to marry her, just so you know. Assured Max. Issei nodded. So I'm sending the marriage agreements? Asked, confirmed Max. Alright. Replied Issei with a blushing face as he recalled his special little shower incident. Line break. When Issei entered his room, he thought he'd directly go to bed and sleep for the next 10 hours. But unfortunately the girls have other plans. When Issei entered his room, he saw all the girls sitting on his bed, including Kunu. What took you this long, Ice-kun? Asked Kurumi. Well, there was something that required my presence, replied Issei, who didn't know how to clarify his situation. And what was it? Asked Naruki. I got engaged, simply stated Issei. What? Exclaimed Kurumi, Kunu, Tiamat, Valen, Lafay and Kuroka. Office decided to remain calm as she let her mate finish what he was saying. Ice-kun explained. Start talking, demanded Kunu as her nine tails sways back and forth. There was some purple flame on Kurumi making her look like a death incarnate. Tiamat was making a very sweet face that promised pain. Valen and Kuroka were glaring daggers at him, one wrong move and he is dead. LeFay was looking at him as she was about to burst into tears. Well, you see, Issei explained. 20 minutes later after Issei explained to the girls. So that's how it is, and when do any of you plan to tell me that you all have an agreement? Asked Issei, making all of the girls go red. So you knew? Asked Kurumi while playing with her finger. Yes. And what do you think, Ice-kun surprisingly asked Valen. Issei sighed before he spoke. And if you think I'll abandon any of you or treat you differently, then you all are dead wrong. Didn't I already said once that all of you are too close to my heart to abandon any of you, is like rejecting a piece of my own heart. Before he could say anything more he was tackled by a horde of girls. Baka Issei. Making my heart feel this way, muttered Kurumi. You know what the right words to win my heart, don't you? Darling, whispered Tiamat. My Ice-koi, muttered Kunu to herself while wrapping her nine tails around Issei. You better take responsibility after this, Naya, muttered Valen and Kuroka in unison. LeFay didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms on Issei's arms. Greg and Albion didn't leave out as they muttered lucky bastard inside of the mindscape, but Issei could hear him loud and clear. He didn't know how his uncle gonna react. The Office was standing there with an amused expression. Her mate was quite a charmer, that was something Office realized long ago. Underworld. Sona, Seraphol and their parents were discussing Issei when a magical circle appeared near Lord Citri's ear, catching everyone's attention. Looks like Max and contacted, stated Lady Citri as Lord Citri responded to the communicative magical circle. All went well, I presume, asked Lord Citri. Max just chuckled and said, hi, all went well. I'm sending you marriage agreements, which includes Issei will marry both Sona and Seraphol once he reaches at the age of 20, and an alliance between the clan Citri and Haidu. Lord Citri nodded with a smile and said, then I'll finalize it and make it official. Max was about to break the conversation when Lord Citri stopped him and said, well, you see, Max-san, yesterday Issei asked Sona a favor about checking in his Oba-san in Seraphol Memorial Hospital. Max's eyes widened as he forgot the person he was dealing with also happened to own and manage most advanced medical facilities. Yes, Rose-chan is like a daughter to me if you ask Max, but Jin cut him off in the middle and said you don't have to worry about her anymore before Ice's 7th birthday, she'll be completely healed. Thank you, Jin-san, said Max, and a true warm smile spread on his face, and he cut the magical conversation. Jin turned to the girls and asked, so who's going to sign the contract first? 20 minutes later after signing the contract. So is it done? Asked Lady Citri to confirm the papers. Lord Citri grinned and said, yes, it is done, now it's official. Are we going to make an official announcement? Asked Seraphol cheerfully. Lady Citri giggled and Sona facepalmed, while Lord Citri laughed wholeheartedly. No, I think we should keep it quiet for now, replied Sona. Seraphol looked at her with a curious expression which Sona noticed and continue, look, One-sama, since we are keeping the secret of the identity of Issei. Sona, you made a valid point which couldn't be ignored, said Lord Citri after thinking about her younger daughter's words. But what would we say if anyone or the devil community asked about the marriage? Asked Lady Citri. We could just say both of our daughters already have a fiancé and it's a clan business, stated Lord Citri. And anyone can't interfere in the clan business, added Seraphol as a mischievous smile spread on her face. Very devilish of you, dear, said Lady Citri. Of course, honey. So we should start the celebration? Asked Seraphol while doing her famous dance. Celebration? Asked Sona with a confused face. Of course, Era-chan, Lord Citri. Lady Citri nodded and spoke, Seo, make the preparation. Yes, Lady Citri. Seo bowed and left the room. So girls, who is before Lady Citri asked another question about her future son-in-law. Knock knock. Come, ordered Lady Citri, and the door opened as another maid of the house entered the room. Lady Citri slightly raised her eyebrows on newcomer entry. Lord Citri, Surzich's Lucifer Sama wants to meet you, and Lady Riaz is also with him, said the maid with a bow. Sona scowled as she didn't want to do something with them. Well, Seraphol looked completely uninterested as the only thing she wanted to do was to celebrate at her and her little sister's engagement. Lord and Lady Citri turned their facial expressions to a respected clan leader. Lord Citri nodded to the maid and ordered her to lead them here. They didn't have to wait long as nearly after 5 minutes, a handsome and young man, having the appearance of a man in his early 20s with shoulder-length crimson-red hair and blue-green eyes entered the room. He was the current Lucifer of Underworld, Surzich's Lucifer. But a beautiful young girl with white skin, blue eyes with him, her most distinctive feature is her long beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She's the little sister of current Lucifer, Riaz Gremory. They greeted each other. Lord Citri and Lady Citri and also Serafo decided it's better to talk in the study room, so they and Surziches went to study room, leaving Sona and Riaz with themselves. Sona-chan, did you practice some magic? Riaz asked, knowing well enough that Sona mainly considers a strategist rather than raw power, but she didn't know that after meeting Issei, Sona changed for the better. She not only wants to outmaster her opponents with just strategy, but with her powers too. If her own One-Sama could become the strongest woman in hell, then she'll surpass her one day. She vowed to herself, if other girls who have a thing for her Ice-kun and are ridiculously already strong but still trained to become more powerful in future, then why wouldn't she? No. She won't become just a king who just makes strategy for her peerage, but to become something more. After meeting Issei and his incomplete peerage and seeing how they treated each other, it was enough to open her eyes. So the day they returned from the vacation, she went straight to her parents and asked them to train her. That surprised her parents too, as she never asked them to train her like their older daughter used to be in her younger days. Well, Serafo wasn't that old. Back to the topic, her parents immediately agreed to train their younger daughter's request, no question asked. When Serafo caught wind of her little sister doing some rough training, she wasn't too pleased. Call it One-Sama instinct, who didn't want to see her little sister hurt, even if it's from a training session. But after a little assurance from Sona, Serafo changed her views, not to mention how proud she was with her little sister when she said that she wanted to become strong, not just in strategy for her peerage, and also wanted to surpass her one day, leaving Issei part. She not only has an affinity to water, but ice too, just like her One-Sama, which took her enough time to awaken it. And she was damn sure if she wasn't doing the training she wouldn't awaken her ice affinity. She started after the vacation, she won't even know she has also an affinity towards ice. Not to mention the book that Valen gave her came in handy and made her training tougher than usual. She didn't tell her family that she awakened an affinity towards ice, rather she decided to show them. What a better way to show how much potential she has. So she learned a simple but pretty offensive and defensive ice magic from the book Valen had given her. When she showed her little trick to her parents and One-Sama, needless to say, their jaw hit the ground faster than Issei's to do his swing mood. She giggled at that thought, the astonished, surprised, and awed faces of her parents and her One-Sama. She looked at Riaz and composed herself and spoke, yes, I did. Riaz looked at her surprised as Sona never admitted she trained in the magical department. What about you, Riaz? Continued Sona. If Riaz wasn't surprised by her previous answer, she was now. Sona never asked about it. I'm doing fine, replied Riaz, nonetheless. My goal is set, I'll become the champion of rating games, stated Riaz's smug ignorance. Of course you will, replied Sona sarcastically, which didn't go unnoticed by Riaz as she scowled and spoke like you can. Again, to her surprise, Sona just chuckled and spoke, who knows, maybe and I have a different goal. You sure do, maybe win a few chess tournaments, taunted Riaz. Sona didn't like a bit on what she said and a devilish smile spread on her face and she said congratulations, said Sona with a smirk. Huh? Said Riaz with a confused expression. I heard you got engaged. Sona stated simply, resulting from getting a red face from Riaz full of anger and embarrassment. Her spoiled attitude was telling her to say something to shut Sona's mouth, while one part of her wanted to ask Sona to help her so she could get out of her marriage. In the end, her spoiled attitude won as she said something that will close any chances for her to get Sona's help. Thank you, but I couldn't say the same thing about you, said Riaz. Sona just chuckled at getting a red face Riaz as she thought Sona was making fun of her, but Sona continued and spoke, oh silly me, I didn't tell you yet, paused Sona before a pure smile spread on her face, I got engaged today. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys, before you go just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.